So on our panel this afternoon, we have Josh Beck from BCI Technology Investments. We have Jeffrey McDaniel from Innovation Works. We have Sakshi Mishra from Microsoft, who is a CMU alum. And we also have Phoebe Wang from Shell Ventures. Now I know that we also have Judy Li, who's with Energy Foundry, but she has not yet joined us. She's going to be in here in just a few minutes. So with that, let's turn on the cameras. Let's take the slide down and we have everyone. Yes, and so we're still just waiting for, oh, Judy, you're here. Good, fantastic. Everyone is with us. So we're going to spotlight this group. And I am really excited to not only see all of your faces, but also ask you the hard questions. Because you all have been a part of this exciting Energy Week, CMU Energy Week 2022. I'm hoping that 2023, we will all be standing next to each other, shaking hands and high-fiving. But for the interim, we are doing the best that we can. So we've got a great group here with us. And what I want to do is start with sort of an overarching question. And again, we have 30 minutes, so concise is going to be really important. So each of you was a judge during at least one activity this week. So I want first, please, your name, a quick bit about you, really short, and then tell us which particular event you were a part of as I ask you this first question. So remember all that you're going to have to give me in this first question. Tell me a little bit about the most impactful thing that you heard about this week. And it's not just an innovation. Maybe it is a specific innovation. Maybe it's a particular trend. And since this is a really, really hard question, I'm going to start with Judy Li, because Judy has all the answers. So Judy, we're going to go with you. And Josh, you're going to be up next.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Oops.
So
is
Judy,
my video still working?
It is not, but just keep talking because we can hear you until it comes back on.
Let me see. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, there we go. Well, hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to be part of I was on the session, the second session on Tuesday for the American Made Solar Prize.
So for software, good.
Software,
okay.
Right. And an impactful thing that I've been thinking of since that session was there are a lot of new ways or a lot of different approaches to how do we use the data flows that are available to us. I heard a lot of conversation around using weather data and how that can be used in order to predict solar energy generation and other renewable energy generation, what that means, and catastrophic event forecasting. And so there is a lot of people thinking about the best way to make smarter decisions given the data streams that we're getting. They're more and more robust. Computing is more and more robust. We can build better and better models. And so to me, a big question that I leave all of you guys with is like, yes, the data is there, the technology, we can work the models, but also how do we productize this? Like, what's the best path to market to get customers to really hit their pain point on how they should be thinking about catastrophic events, why they should care, and how they're going to integrate this information into their businesses and why it's valuable. And so, I don't know, something top of mind for me, but I jumped right to it. But my name is Judy, and I work at Energy Foundry, which is a venture capital fund that invests in early stage clean tech, climate tech, sustainability, energy, whatever you want to call it, startups that are impactful. Usually we're at the seed stage. So really going in early and supporting these companies in their commercialization path.
Fantastic. Thank you, Judy. Josh, you're going to go next, and Phoebe, you'll be right after.
Yeah, great. And thank you, Judy. I think that was spot on. I'm Josh Beck, Managing Director and Chief Investment Officer of BCI Technology Investments. We're an A and B round clean tech investor, primarily focused on utility and commercial industrial scale solar. I think that's something, and I'm sorry, I participated in the American Made Solar Prize round 2 set set challenge here. I think that the most impactful thing that I've been really thinking about is this massive trend of onshoring on the manufacturing side, all the way down to, into the ground and into the raw material supply chain. So we're seeing a massive transition back into the United States. I think that, the looming Build Back Better and a lot of things happening with the infrastructure bill and all these things have provided a number of incentives. And it's really exciting to see how many of our entrepreneurs and their associated supply chains are bringing tentacles back into North America. Now, by no means are people avoiding East Asia or India or Turkey or all these other places in the world that are high manufacturing capacity locations. But we are seeing a lot of tentacles being brought back here to the United States to consolidate supply chains and mitigate supply chain risk. And that's creating a variety of options for earlier and earlier stage entrepreneurs, because now they've got more direct access to prototyping resources and to manufacturing and growth capital, because it's more aligning strategically with these larger kind of manufacturing operations.
Very insightful. Thank you, Phoebe. And then how about we'll do Sakshi next. Jeff, you'll be at the tail end, so make it good.
Sounds good. Thanks, Anna. And great to see you again, Josh. We did that like a solar prize last year, so it's good to be back. And I'm honored to be on this panel with the fabulous and intelligent panelists. So my name is Phoebe Wang. I'm the head of the deep tech investments for Shell Ventures, and actually covering the early stage investments as well. So yeah, and just a really quick plug for Shell. Shell Ventures has been around for 30 years. We're their venture capital arm for the role that Shell or Shell company these days. And we have like a $2 billion AUM with 1.4 billion new capital coming in to invest in companies. So definitely looking forward to some really interesting opportunities coming out of this prize competition. Things that I found super inspiring during my software session, I think I shared the same session with you, Judy, is that hardware is the new software, and I definitely see a lot of really interesting companies coming out, kind of combining both the software and hardware, and it's just a common and probably a very a trend has been around for a few years now, that you can't really go without software by doing your hardware, right? So we have digital twins for our power plants. We have like quantum computing to figure out what's the best kind of design for some of the hardware applications. So yeah, I think that actually I saw that in the software session, and just amazing to see so many competent entrepreneurs and being bringing their ideas. So super good. And yeah, I'll hand over to Sakshi, and Anna.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna, for having me here. I'm Sakshi Mishra. I'm senior AI engineer with Microsoft. My background has been, I have worked at NRO before. I'm CMU alum and have been involved in energy industry from both software and hardware aspects. Have worked in transmission and, okay, keeping it super brief. So I have attended 2 sessions, actually, Energy Tech Up as well as American Made Solar Prize. So I'll focus on the Energy Tech Up feedback, because that's something I think we have not covered yet. So the event was yesterday, CMU has hosted it, and a couple of major trends I saw there. One was like the early opportunity for entrepreneurs with engineering background coming together to come up with a business plan for commercialization. I think it's in general, having that kind of opportunity at this stage where they are thinking more or less engineering technology phases, and the technology is pretty sound, giving them this platform to pitch their business plans and think through those. I think that is very important, because that's where I see more need of kind of concretizing their business models and being able to concretely put a number or quantification on what kinds of funds are needed, how aggressive can they go, given the market conditions. So I think that's the next step for these startup ideas. And because I see the technology is pretty strong, productization and essentially quantification is something, if they add on top of it, it will accelerate their paths to really be able to get the technology to deploy on scale. Thanks.
Thanks for putting the pressure on me, Anna. I'm Jeff McDaniel. I'm a portfolio executive at Innovation Works, which is one of the most active early stage seed investors. We also happen to be located in southwestern Pennsylvania, so I'm here in Pittsburgh. I sat in on a number of sessions. I think I was doing software for the Solar Prize on Tuesday, but kind of a global observation is literally how global the concepts are. I was struck by a number of the applications and how they could be ported across borders in a way that I don't think we would have seen even a few years ago. So these are solutions that can be applied fairly flexibly, across different countries, several languages, and done so fairly quickly. I spend most of my time at Innovation Works working with hardware companies and software companies, many of whom are in the energy sector. And 10 years ago, we would not have had the regulatory landscape that we have today, as far as at least beginning to break down some of the barriers that have existed for decades with many of the ideas here. So I think as far as a trend is concerned, I think we are starting to see a convergence, kind of government interest in being able to support some of the emerging new technologies that we heard about this week.
So again, I know we have limited time, so I'm going to keep asking hard questions. But the big question for me is, what's missing? Like, what did we not cover? What gaps did you see? And I'm just going to throw it out to any of you, because some of you might say there were no gaps. We covered everything. But I really want to think about this from the lens of the students in our audience, because they're thinking about what their career looks like. So you could blend this nicely with a conversation about trends, like things that are going to be important in the future. But what was missing, if you saw anything? Or you can just jump right into the trend that you think is going to be most important. Who'd like to go first?
Maybe I'll go first this time, because it's a kind of a really good question. I'm pretty sure that I did not see the everything, given that I only attended one session. But one thing that I just from the angle of potential like a future career thinking, right? Solar is one of the renewable power that is super important, and we have a lot of innovations around that. What I have seen in the market is for us to be able to use the renewable power meaningfully, kind of being able to compete with the fossil fuel, being able to compete with nuclear, it is the intimacy of the power. So we do need to see the right storage facilities in addition to like the innovation around solar. So if you're thinking about your next kind of innovation in the renewable power space, and then or if you're thinking about the career, right, I think being able to make huge leapfrog forward on the energy storage, being able to do that and kind of store the renewable power in a meaningful way is going to be super important. Yeah, I just want to flag that is one of the key topics that I've been very interested in, and happy to chat more about that later. Yeah.
Later at the networking. So just you can unmute yourself if you want to go next is probably the best way to do it. But who would like to jump in with either a trend, an insight about something that students can be thinking about, or maybe something that was missing?
Yeah, I'll jump in next. I would say that covered a lot of basis. I would say going a little bit deeper on the transition from gray to blue to green hydrogen, I think is of the utmost importance for not only the decarbonization of the planet, but also for the future of science, and particularly applicable to the students listening here. I think that those who are going to CMU are sitting on a gold mine, or I should say a gas mine of opportunity of the transition, because I'm a firm believer that we're going to see a blue hydrogen transition into green hydrogen. In Western Pennsylvania, Eastern Ohio, The Panhandle of West Virginia is going to be a major kind of tip of the spear in leading that initiative as we decarbonize the planet. And I think that that's going to open up a tremendous amount of new technology branches that we're only beginning to identify in terms of how we can kind of further create an ever increasing efficiency within hydrogen production.
I can go next. So I want to share a perspective on the software side of things. So as we think about these new technologies, what happens is we have to integrate them with the grid, and integrating them with the grid needs to deal with the digital layer as well. And one thing I've seen in general is kind of this talent divide, where few folks know software engineering so well and few folks are very good with solar technology or wind technology itself. So there is a need for folks to have kind of combined skill set, and it does not necessarily have to be like very deep software engineering knowledge, but knowing a little bit of how to integrate these technologies on the digital layer of the energy grid is something I think it's kind of the skill set we need to build more and more as we move towards trying to build this grid of the future, which is bringing all these technologies together, be it storage or electric mobility or solar or new kinds of energy resources. So that's where I try and communicate it, like I'm trying to make sure I communicate it right. I'm not saying everybody has to know coding and very good software engineering, and they also have to, all sorts of energy technology details, but having the overall understanding of how they interact with each other, I think can be useful for students to carve out their career for the types of skills or talents we need as this whole transition is happening to smart grid. So, yeah.
I can go next. So sorry, Jeff, I guess that does leave you to be last again. So maybe what I'll just say is, I really want to highlight the fact that whenever, at least an investor like us and most others, look at technologies and new ways of doing things, it's really important to us to be able to compare cost and to make the case on a unit economics basis that the cost of, let's say, hydrogen or the renewable energy that's being generated is competitive. And so I see a lot of technologies where it's very innovative. The new method of doing something, new technology is being commercialized, but it's still fuzzy. Like, what does this, like, at least estimate for us? Like, what could this be like as far as cost, and how does that compare with what's already on the market? And so I think, that this goes for any new technology that's trying to commercialize, being able to clearly articulate why your solution is going to be cheaper than what's already out there, or if it's not cheaper, like what does it solve that everybody really needs that current solutions can't have. And so that's just generally, I really like to emphasize that. And then with green hydrogen, I think this is something that I just keep wondering about, which is so many things that I see are about breaking up water molecules to create hydrogen. And that might work in a lot of places where there's a lot of water, but I would love to see some more technologies that take us in a cost-effective approach. It's cheaper to do green hydrogen in a way that isn't about breaking up water, because as we know, that can also be a scarce resource.
What every one of my distinguished panelists have already said, I totally agree with. I don't think I have anything else to add. So Anna, I'll let you go for the next question and I will try to answer it first.
I'm going to let you go first. So one thing I didn't suggest is we do probably have time for one question from the audience. So please use the Q&A. Give me a really good doozy question that I can ask the panelists, but if you send it through the Q&A, type quickly. So Judy mentioned the idea of how she really wants to make sure that when a young company comes to her and is asking for investment, that they focus on financials. So what are some other things that these folks, as potential, they're coming into your office, virtual or otherwise, and they're pitching an idea to you? What is something, but between all of us, we can sort of put this together. What's something that maybe they don't think of that you are really thinking about? Maybe it's something that you're always looking for I don't know, it's the je ne sais quoi, the special sauce. Give me a little bit of insight into what they should be thinking about. See, Jeff, now I gave you a really hard one and you're the first. You may not have time to think about it because
Yeah,
when already.
When I said I wanted to go first, I meant the next question after this one. You know, I mean, there are a number of things that I think the investors on this panel are looking for. And Judy brought up a good one. And I want to hit that one just for a moment, and then I'll try to answer with another answer there. Is that many cases, the companies that we see that are in this space, while they've done a little bit of customer discovery, they have a little bit of a disadvantage against maybe some of their non-energy technology related startups that I spend a lot of time seeing also, because and I've said this I think every year of Energy Week, the folks that participate in Energy Week have a particularly high energy IQ. When you leave the lab, when you leave the garage, wherever you are, and wherever you are doing your heavy thinking and you're starting to socialize that with other people.
That's right. We've drunk the tea. We've all drunk the tea.
You have to remember that not everybody has that level of energy IQ. So as you're communicating the economics of your opportunity, you often have to provide, briefly, a solid, crisp context of how is your solution fit into the existing world or the future world. So I would encourage all of you to think about how you can leave this space today and continue to educate those around you who may not know exactly where the energy comes from that powers the light bulb that just turned on, or the laptop that you might be looking at this event on today.
Very well said. And it's very true. Any other insights on this one, Phoebe?
Yeah, I'll go next. I actually have a list. If you're going to pitch for VCs, right, you have your normal like a market, TAM, team, etc. Specifically for hardware, I think that's kind of the topic for, and especially many of you are going to that route. I think things that you do want to get your prototype, you want to make sure that you're familiar with the TRL level and being able to talk about that intelligently. And then also like a lot of times you would be like asked about whether you have a pilot, whether you're a team member, have experience in working with large corporations that can help you to pinpoint of who to collaborate and how to do that, like your very first pilot project with either companies or government. So those are the things that you do want to kind of think about it, especially you're in solar, you're in hardware or deep tech. In addition to kind of all other stuff that you need to worry about compared to normal companies or normal startups. Yeah, and hand over to Josh. I know that he always has a lot of wisdom there.
Thank you, Phoebe. That's great. And that kind of builds off of what I was thinking on the collaboration side. You know, what I always look for, and this is a core point in our due diligence, and what a lot of entrepreneurs will find with venture capitalists is, you know, I've got young kids, you know, I'm always looking for entrepreneurs who can play nice in the sandbox with others, right? So I'm looking for entrepreneurs who know how to collaborate. You know, if you are the most talented researcher or scientist in the world, and you've surrounded yourself by the three, you know, number 2, 3, and 4, that's all great. All I hear is, sounds like you guys are living in an echo chamber, right? So then I'd like to see more entrepreneurs reach across the aisle to the commercialization and the business folks. I know that can be really scary. I know that you might be scared about someone taking your IP. You have to be confident in your technology set, and you have to strive to make strategic partnerships that link the commercial and the technology side, because one without the other significantly increases your chance of failure. And when you link them together, it dramatically catapults your chances of success forward.
If we have time, I can add one more quick point there. Okay, so it's the ecosystem approach. So one thing I found is that if we are building or pitching a new technology, it can be something like we are always tempted to say that it's a disruptive technology going to disrupt everything and our product is great. Okay, there is innovation and that's great. But if we are able to show that the product we are building is actually work within the ecosystem of technologies of today or tomorrow, saying that if we are, let's say it's a new kind of solar panel with more efficiency, how does it work? Will it be compatible with the existing inverters? Will it be working with the standards which grid has set up? So as much as it is required for the product to be innovative and showing that this is how we are solving the customer's pain point, it is also important to emphasize or start thinking about how will once product is there in the market and it gets integrated into the ecosystem, how will it play well with the ecosystem? Because that kind of determines the adoption potential of the product once it gets commercialized. So thinking about that from the beginning, that how do you fit yourself into today's or tomorrow's ecosystem, definitely gives a niche within the competition out there for the same kind of product.
So, when I asked for questions and a couple of them came in and you guys are diligently typing answers to them. A lot of the questions were, how do you stay involved if your startup doesn't make it? How do you show your technology without giving away your big idea? And what do you do if the market isn't there yet? Like if you're trying to create something and there isn't yet in the market. So I'm going to throw that out and see if any of those three questions inspires one of you to speak. The last thing I want us to do is give us your bit of inspiration. Like what is the most important thing that you want us to know about the future of investment in energy and climate technologies? So it's a blend. It's a blend question again. Who'd like to go first? This is not a shy crowd. So Phoebe.
Okay, I'll go. I'll go. Yeah. So a lot of times, like VCs are investing in companies that are not serving the market that exists yet, right? So we have invested in zero aviar before hydrogen is a thing. So it's so I think if you're thinking about, hey, the market's not there, there are two questions that I would ask you. One is it fundamentally make sense, like the law of physics, does that make sense for you to go through that? Do you think that there is going to be a market in the future, in the next 3 to 5 years or even longer? Then if yes, the second question is, do you have the tenacity of bringing that to fruition? Because when Elon Musk did the Tesla, a lot of people laughed at him, right? So are you able to kind of take the guts and do that and kind of turn through, even though there are a lot of obstacles in the future? So, but I think it's like a really, really exciting time, right? There are a lot of capital around, there are a lot of really inspiring people around. So I think if you are believing in your idea and you check all those two check marks, you should definitely like take the risk and do it. Yeah.
Do we have one more person who wants to answer? And then we're going to start talking about our networking, because this conversation continues in the next room. Who'd like to go?
I'll just quickly try to respond to the question about what if you're in a seemingly competitive space, or you're concerned that your idea might be shared with somebody else. The existence of a little bit of competition is actually probably an advantage. And so don't let that be the deterrent, but you're going to want to understand, who is, participating, who might be potential competition, but who might be a complementary partner one day in the future. I'm struck by how many startups will come in, and when they are asked the question of who is their competition, they say, well, we don't have any. You probably do. It just means you haven't asked enough people who you think my competition might be. So I encourage you to go ahead and stick to it, even if it looks like it might be slightly competitive. I'll just end that with saying that I think a lot of people like me, well, not like me, I'm not going to say that, take that back. I used Netscape years ago, thinking that was going to be the incumbent. And I bet most of the people who are on the screen or listening to us right now never used Netscape, just as an observation. Look it up.
Any other final thoughts? We have a few minutes. We can go a little over. I want to make sure we get the good stuff.
I'd just say on the encouraging side, this is the most exciting time to be part of the energy industry on a macro, on a global scale in over 100 years. We're in a fundamental point of energy transition that's affecting every aspect of business and culture and society. And man, I can't imagine wanting to work in any other fields, says the energy investor, right? But this is incredible. And I encourage all of you that it's easy to get caught into the minutia. And whenever you're working on hardware or software, my gosh, you're 2 miles deep into any problem solution set. And, make sure that you step back from time to time and you look at the landscape. And because in that forest, there is just some incredible entrepreneurs and incredible innovators that are being drawn into the space. And there's just this incredible buzz of energy around energy. And I'm excited to see what y'all as this next generation are going to come up with, which is way cooler than what any of us came up with before you.
Unless anyone has final thoughts, I kind of like that one. I think that's an important thing. All right, so thank you all so much for joining us. I want to say another shout out to Kristen Whitlinger and Caitlin Haas-Conrad, who have been behind the scenes, as well as Brian Yeski, who's been our media tech for this entire week. Thank you. Thanks also to Sarah Gomash from NREL and the entire team at NREL, Joe Simon and et cetera. There's just so many people that we've worked with on some incredible events this week. We are going to jump over and bring your virtual cocktails with you because we're going to be having a mixer. So we have just put the virtual networking mixer Remo link into the chat, made it super easy for you to just jump right over. And with that, I want to say thank you to these panelists, my friends, for being a part of not only bits and pieces of this week. Some of you stayed on longer than you had to. So I really appreciate all of your efforts. It is a remarkable time to be working in energy. As Josh mentioned, as others have noted, there is significant work to be done and there's room for everyone. So I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you, the work that you do day in and day out. And I look forward to all of us continuing to move this forward. So with that, we're going to sign off until we get into the next room. I will see you all there. I'm bringing, I think, some champagne, maybe. I'll see you. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. See you soon.